Greetings and welcome to Reanimated. This is Stuart on the California coast, and joining me from New York is AJ Conrad. Hello, AJ.
Hello, Stuart.
Hey. So it's been a normal week with very little of interest going on, very little news about this non-interesting thing that may or may not have happened. Um, but yeah, like last week, I think we said, "Oh, there's a poster for 28 Years Later. How cool!" But I wish it was a trailer. And then like 2 days later, the trailer opens, and what a trailer!
Uh-huh.
This is like
Yep.
maybe setting a pretty high bar for the art of trailer making in a way. Like you don't we see so many trailers that just give you everything, have a whole bunch of dialogue. This did not have any really. This was really short dialogue. Tell me your impressions. How did you see it first? Did you see it on a phone, or have you seen it on a bigger
I
screen?
I saw it on a phone because it immediately popped up. And I have to say the use of this particular poem was really well done and t like chilling. Um,
Yeah, I've got feelings about the poem, but tell me about your feelings of the yeah, more of your feelings of the trailer.
I mean, it's very dark and I was excited about it. I didn't, there is conjecture, and do we want to talk about the spoil? I mean, I think it's all over the
Yeah,
place,
yeah,
so we can
no, I
probably.
mean, it's is that guy who raises up out of the grass, Killian
Yeah,
Jim from the first
yeah,
movie.
yeah.
Sure as hell
So
looks a lot like an emaciated version of him.
kind of does, but in fact, it is not. I mean, this
So
came
says
out.
a source. Who was the source?
I think it's the guy who actually is in the movie, Angus Neal, he's a UK art dealer and looks like he's got a distinctive look, as they keep saying. And he has like a 28-inch waist. The thing that I think is both funny, but also just, I don't know, just I found it funny is that I guess Danny Boyle had been interested in him playing this role because of his distinctive look, like had him in mind for it. And I don't know. I mean, I guess if you have a distinctive look like this is something that may come up. I don't know, maybe not, but I think it's definitely like looking at the comparison, I think it's probably Angus Neal. But the thing that I think just had everybody just kind of running around the bend is that Cillian Murphy hasn't appeared in the official cast. There's been rumors about it. He's a producer, but he isn't shown as like a cast member. And so I think when this popped up, everybody was like, "Oh my gosh, that's how they got around
We
it."
reported on some story that he
They
had
said he
he
was
had
going
said
to
he was going to
appear.
be in it, right?
Yeah. So he had said
I
that.
think I think there's a cameo that we're gonna have, and then he'll be more featured in the subsequent films. I thought that was the established sort of narrative.
Yeah, and I mean, I think you and I both talked about like, is it a cameo where he appears and bites it really quickly
Yeah.
or something? I don't know, but and then this, I admit, when I saw it, I was also like, oh no, is this what they did with it? But yeah, and then this also set off a bunch of other conjecture, which I think is kind of weird. Um, so people are kind of in I don't know, like in tied up in knots about the fact that they think that they're going away from the basically the canon of this film and what this is, that it's a virus versus a zombie, meaning that bodies can die, and that's how the outbreak kind of dies out, is that people just like waited it out because the bodies burn themselves out, or starved rather. But I did think in 28 weeks later, they introduced like this sort of this alternative like gene where there's some evolution of the virus, so that could be a
But
possibility.
that's not going to
Um,
be canon, right? Or I assume 28 weeks later is not going to be canon.
I don't think so either,
It's
but
not a Alex Garland or
oh no.
Danny Boyle joint.
But I just think that people are making a lot of conjectures based upon this trailer,
Oh,
which
speculation is rampant right now.
rampant.
This is
Um,
it's a hell of a time to be alive. Is watching, 2, 3 minutes of extremely short edits and being like, what does it all mean? So that's kind of just where we live now, unfortunately.
yeah,
Fortunately.
but anyway,
Have you seen the
I
the rumors or the speculation about the giant zombie? There's
no.
this one. There are a few scenes of like a pretty chiseled torso chasing Aaron Taylor Thomas. Is that his name?
Yeah.
Johnson something. What he has a bunch of names. Um, and that boy, he and that boy, maybe his son, maybe just another, young member from their community, go out of the safe zone into the world and encounter zombies. I think that's about as much of the plot as I'm able to take away from the trailer.
Yeah.
And then there's a few scenes of them being followed. Um,
By a big,
but
I didn't
maybe,
think
and there's one of
giant.
that thing crawling through the woods. People have been speculating that there's a giant. And it's so well shot together that it's impossible. It could be a giant, or it could just be like somebody really close to a camera. So we'll find out.
I didn't get giant from that,
Well,
but
some people on the internet
okay.
did. Okay, so let me talk quickly about Boots, which is the poem that starts playing about, I don't know, 20 seconds into the trailer. At
I guess
first,
my question is,
the
had you heard it
oh,
before?
hell yeah. At first, the
Okay.
music for this trailer is Teletubbies music, and I gotta just
Mhm.
hand it to, Danny Boyle, Alex Garland, whoever does all the, I don't know who does all their sound design, but like Teletubbies, as far as like a dissonant goddamn
Oh yeah,
thing to start with.
but also a kind of an evil thing.
Yeah,
I mean, we
well,
all think Teletubbies are a little evil.
something's not quite right about them. A woman comes into that house and says, "Jimmy, don't sit here, don't move. Auntie, what's going on?" And then, there's some scenes of violence and some of the words start flashing up on the screen about like it's been 10,288 days, days turn into weeks, yada yada. And then Boots starts playing. Boots is a poem by Rudyard Kipling. This recording was done in 1915 by an American
Mm.
actor. And this is the recording that I had to listen to for, I don't know, 48 hours straight when I was locked in a tiny box at a simulated POW camp when I was in the Air Force. So
Ugh.
this is something that they've used throughout American military because I've seen every like if you find the recording on YouTube, more than half of the comments right now are like, this freaking poem. Like I have PTSD from listening to this because it's just on loudspeakers. It was this and some other stuff. It wasn't just this poem. But oh my, it's like it's so repetitive and it was kind of meant to emulate the insanity that soldiers would feel after marching for hours because they're just listening to the tromp of boots. And in this case, you're just listening to this actor recite this poem.
That sounds like a nightmare, Stuart. So did you like listen watching this trailer? Was this just like even
Nah,
worse
I mean,
for you?
enough
I mean,
time has passed, but it was definitely like I'm sure it was definitely evocative. Let's put it that way. Yeah, it's used in SEER training and I guess throughout a lot of branches. And it does mess with your head. But
oh.
enough time has passed that I think I wouldn't want to listen to it over and over again. It's not a trailer that I'm gonna just keep watching because it is a little bit triggery. But tough times in the past. Um, but what great trailer, like phenomenal trailer. Ray Fiennes shows up. He's some sort of, I don't know, cult leader, priest. There's a whole mountain of skulls. This community looks great, and then it looks like it's under attack. One of my favorite zombie movie tropes of everything was going fine until sort of things. I'm so excited to see this movie. I hope that it can live up to this trailer, which clearly is just a masterpiece of trailer making.
Okay, I will admit I just took a quick peek again at the trailer, and I will say when they're looking in the like di middle distance, like and they see the man and his son, and or I think it's his son, we don't know.
Hmm.
Is they there is a rather large figure, so maybe it's just like a really huge man.
Yeah, and we're not
But
talking like Game of Thrones giant, but this guy maybe
no,
is 10 feet tall. I mean, he could be, right?
he's big. So just saying, maybe that they're going
Maybe there's
for that.
something to it. There's also some scenes of like modern soldiers or historical soldiers in this case, because this is 28
Right.
years in the future. Is there some sort of like, yeah, the one with like, are you looking at the freeze frame with the tree? There's that beautiful tree,
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
there's like
There's like figures, but there's one that's like
there's
pretty
eight
big by
eight small
comparison.
people and one large one that's standing still. Its
Yep.
perspective could be messing with you. Maybe he's just closer than the others.
Maybe he's a
Maybe
giant.
he's a giant. That's all I'm saying. And that's what a lot of people or some people on the internet are saying too. Um, okay. But so I wonder what's going on with those soldiers. They also seem to run into a person who is, they are coming up to its chest or stomach in the dark before they get messed up by it. So that's another reason why we're like, oh, giant. Either
Mm.
way, this trailer lets you kind of make a lot of these wild guesses, and that's fun about it. It doesn't tell you the whole story. It's which so many trailers do. So it's cool. But that's not the only news that dropped this week. Are you ready to talk about something else, or do you want to stay on the trailer?
Oh no, I'm just looking forward to more.
Yeah,
I'm assuming there will be other trailers and maybe more extended trailers.
yeah.
But I will say I've heard not in the context that you have, but I've heard this poem and this rendition of the poem, and it's honestly always creeped me out even before any of this happened. Actually creeps me out even more knowing that that's what they're using it for and that you had to listen to that for 48 hours. That's like, ugh.
You know, at
Um,
least it was just with a bucket of my own human waste
right.
next to me.
Oh yeah, at least it's great. Anyway, um, but I am looking forward to seeing this film. I think um I feel like it's going to be pretty good. One thing that I was trying to, I don't know, like what you thought when you watched the trailer, but this does not seem like it was shot on an iPhone. And it was.
Yeah,
Um,
honestly, like the aspect ratio doesn't look like something you could get out of an iPhone, but yeah.
no, but it was. So I'm very curious to see a little bit more. But so far I am just even more excited to see this. So okay, now I'm ready to move on. That was like the last little bit I wanted to throw in
Oh,
there.
one last thing. The body that they find in that house that's like hanging from the
Oh,
ceiling has
yeah.
Jimmy written on its torso upside down because it's hanging upside down.
Oh.
And Jimmy, or maybe it's just Immy, is all I can see. It could, I know that does look like a J.
Oh, I saw that too. I
And
saw that
Jimmy
too.
is the name that that woman says to the
Yeah.
boy in the house when they're watching Teletubbies. And Jim is the name of the main character from the first movie. So just so many breadcrumbs, Alex Garland, Danny Boyle. I kind of hate and love you.
They're
Um,
doing it on
I
purpose. They're
know.
just messing with us.
Totally. They're totally messing with me, specifically. They're like, what's going to get that guy?
Yeah.
Okay. So Return of the Living Dead teaser dropped also. You can find it on YouTube. It's a very limited teaser trailer. Kind of goes
Mm.
on a little longer than I would like it to.
Yeah, same. And it's supposed to be an homage to the Resurrection Cemetery from the original Living Dead.
Oh yeah.
Uh, but the cemetery itself. And it's going to be next year in December that they will be releasing this. And so that's exciting. I think that nothing says Christmas like zombie movies.
What's
So
going on with all the horror getting specifically released at Christmas time, like Nosferatu?
I think this is just people want an escape from normal holiday fare. I think this has always been a thing. But it feels like it's gotten a little bit more momentum in the past few years. Um, but I think there's always been somewhat of a symbiotic horror thing other than just in my own family. Like we used to watch Shaun of the Dead on Christmas and, that kind of thing. So that felt like a Christmassy movie to us. We're weird. But I think that that's a piece of it, that the horror of the holidays, people just want to have an escape, and this is a fun thing to do, a fun way to do it.
Yeah, interesting.
What do you think?
I
You're
don't know
like,
what to think about it, but I'm wondering if there's like a growing movement of like let's do fewer Christmassy things so that people who don't like Christmas have something to do. I don't know.
I think that's a piece of
Yeah.
it. But I also think that there maybe also is a push to, I don't know, I don't know, but it's interesting because it is year end. So if you wanted to do any awards or whatever, maybe it's that last push to get into the awards category if you're doing like horror or whatever. Not that there's that much,
Horror getting
when,
awards.
yeah, but still. But anyway, this is kind of maybe going into the bleakness of winter just gives people that little horror crutch they need. I don't know.
Yeah.
So,
So if you want to watch like I don't know a minute and a half of a zombie walking to a cemetery dragging a Christmas tree, go ahead and watch Return of the Living Dead teaser. Now we know it's coming next Christmas. That's cool, and we'll keep an eye out for it. Other things that we know that are coming now in 2025 also include Marvel Zombies. I think maybe we already had a release date for this,
We did.
but now the executive producer, or at least in this Newsweek article, the executive producer has talked about October 3rd, 2025 being the specific date. It's so long, it's so far away. I think that's why I kind of blocked it out of my mind from the first time we heard about it. And
Right, but it's nice because we'll have a lot of fodder to talk about all year round.
I mean, yeah, certainly the third quarter of 2025, third and fourth quarter, we'll have plenty to talk about.
No, but we'll be okay
We'll
up
make it.
until then.
We'll
I
make
think
it.
we have a
We
lot. We have
do.
a
We
lot
do.
in the
I
hopper.
actually started watching Happiness, which is a K-drama with zombies. I would actually term it that way rather than a Korean zombie show because so far the zombies seem to be pretty light. But Happiness, it's on Netflix. I'll let you know if it's worth us talking about too.
Okay.
Okay, and then oh yeah, there's an interesting article in the Hollywood Reporter that came out not too long ago. Maybe it was certainly it came out this week. It doesn't have an exact date on it. No, December 13th, so 2 days ago. About the movie Outbreak. We've already mentioned it. Um, this is more of a behind the scenes article about the creation of the film. It's being made by a guy who's been in Hollywood for 25 years as a stuntman, and this is his first. It's not his first time behind the camera because he's directed things before, little things like pilots, nothing that has really blown up. But now he wrote the script. He is directing and producing this film and put it together for less than $1 million. And that this kind of article just makes me, want to check this out. It feels bootstrappy. Apparently, he's just walking around Santa Monica putting up flyers to try and get, enough people to go to the theater when it comes
Right,
out.
and he also had took advantage of the SAG after strike and got a little bit of a um an exception, so got a lot of talented people to get into this. People that probably wouldn't normally have been associated just because they would be too busy and too expensive. So I'm all about these bootstrappy projects. I think it's kind of cool that he did this. And so I'm excited. I'm excited to see this. I think it'll be awesome.
Yeah, me too. And I'm not sure that I recall when this is coming out,
Yeah, I don't know
but
either, but we'll add it to the list and we'll definitely
actually,
take it.
I think you can already rent it online. So we'll just,
Oh, it does
it
too.
just needs to get on our list and we will happily watch this too. And then that kind of brings us to the end of our news and to the introduction of our recap slash review for today, which is the third episode, season 2 of Silo called Solo.
Yeah.
And this is, let's see, it's directed by Eric Avellino, written by Cassie Papas.
Hmm.
Um, and it takes place in both the silos. Silo
Yep.
18, which is where Juliet Nichols is from, and Silo 17, which is where we discover that she has ended up. There's a lot of world exposition going on in this episode. A lot of it just kind of offhandedly delivered by Steve Zahn's character, who,
Yeah, he's really good. I mean, this
yeah,
is and his responses, his interaction with Juliet.
his delivery of his
Yep.
lines, like even when you can't see his face, is just so strong in these scenes that he has. But this is also there's a lot going on back at the main silo too. I kind of enjoyed this episode, even though it's still a lot of I guess it's still a lot of build up in a way, but there's also some big stuff happening. And like a real fire is lit under Juliet based on some of the stuff that Solo tells her.
Yep.
Especially like it kind of all is developed in this first scene where it kind of picks up right from where the first episode ended, where she's standing in front of the door. He has just told her, "I'll kill you if you try to open this door again."
Hmm.
And I kind of assumed that would be the end of the conversation the first time I watched that, but apparently
Yeah.
no. They hung out and talked more.
Yep.
In part because I think Solo really, really needs somebody to talk to.
He does, but he's also under, I mean, he's been alone obviously for a really long time, and he isn't totally positive that she's real. So that's also him trying to get through that level
So all the way through
of
this episode, he's not sure if she's there.
yeah. Yep. Yep.
Which is fun. Yeah,
So
it's yeah, so he's like honestly just the conviction, the constitution that it would take to be completely by yourself for 25 plus years. Because Bernard also reveals that the Silo 17 things that happened there happened before he made Meadows his shadow. And she was a shadow for I forget how long, maybe a year before she
mhm.
quit, went to be a judge and just drank herself into a stupor for the next
Yep.
25 years. So it's been a long, long time that he has been alone. Although, as Juliet notices in this episode, there the two bodies that are outside of the vault door
Are
are
newer.
somehow not as old. I don't know that I can tell, but way to go, Juliet.
No.
And that's something that Solo is not willing to talk about. But another mystery. Uh, but he tells like they're talking about things like, oh, your name is Juliet, like from the play, and she has this realization that that's not just a play that comes from her silo,
Yep.
um, which is kind of interesting. And then he's also like, oh, are you kind of like Ron Tucker? I thought I don't remember any of this from the books. I don't think that they're taking quite the same approach. Uh, but
I don't remember exactly. It's been a
But
while.
I thought
So
that this was really well done, where he's like, "Oh yeah, Ron, he went outside and didn't clean, and then shortly after that, everybody went outside and died, and Juliet gets to have that epiphany of like, wait, I did that. Oh no, oh no, what have I done?"
yeah.
So that's kind of interesting. Like she hears that, and shortly thereafter, she's like, "I need a suit. I need to go back." I don't think she's really thinking about what she would do when she gets back. Maybe,
No, I think she's just worried that they're gonna all come out and die. So like
yeah, but
I
would
think
her like reappearing in front of their camera help in
I
some
don't
way?
know.
Because I mean, part of the this whole undercurrent is, Juliet Nichols lives, she's alive out there somewhere, but if she actually shows up alive, I mean, maybe she would only live long enough to get over there, and then she could die on camera, and that would be fine, and everybody would be like, "Oh yeah, okay, it's fine." She somehow lived for 3 days or whatever, however long it's going to be before she shows up on camera again. Or maybe she would take some
Well,
signs. I don't know what her plan is.
I mean, I don't know what her plan is either, but there's a lot of interesting things that happens while she's interacting with Solo. And I mean, even when he says Solo, because I'm alone,
Yeah,
it's like Steve Zahn's performance is pretty amazing here since most of what you see during this episode is just like his
yeah,
eyes.
yeah,
And his voice. And I think that's kind of incredible. But there's also just a lot of like truth bombs dropping all over the place here, which is, first of all, there's other silos. There's 50 silos,
hmm
which he shares with her, which she is like shocked to hear. Secondly, the there's like a poison like dust or a gas or something that he mentions to her, and that's why everybody was able to make it out, and then he said it stirred up and they all died, but they made it out far enough to more than 3 minutes, and then the biggest, not biggest, but like one of the like and it's not like obvious, like she knows this kind of, but she's talking about building herself a new suit to get outside, and and he suggests the fireman suits instead, because you can't, there's not enough materials to make whatever she needs. And she says, oh, they're not built to like survive outside, and he goes, well, neither are the other suits. And that is like a pretty big revelation for her, even though she kind of knows it already.
yeah.
Like she does know this realistically, but that's still kind of ingrained in her that these suits are supposed to be created for survival, but they're not
It's
actually.
basically
Um,
like saying, going out with one of those cleaning suits is kind of the same as going outside with just your clothes, like your normal clothes,
right,
which is kind of
right.
wild to imagine. But yeah,
And I think I mean, the wheels are spinning because I think she's now desperate to go back because she also understands that there's like, I mean, she already knew this because she knew she didn't say that she was going to go outside, and they're going to put her outside anyway. Like she knows that there are like tons of mechanisms and um crazy undercurrents happening in the silo that she has no control over, but she also has a lot of vulnerable friends that are going to be hurt by whatever is happening, and this underlying like I don't want to say conspiracy, but whatever is happening, whatever Bernard is up to, the IT, all of these things are going to probably end up hurting her friends, which I think she can see the reality of just even based upon what Solo is telling her,
Yeah.
that just by the act of going out, like he describes this it's exactly the same. This guy comes out, he writes lies, like all this stuff just happened so quickly,
Mhm.
and that whole silo is dead, and she can see the evidence of that, and she doesn't want that to happen. So there's a lot of, but she's also like, she's gonna solve a problem, she's gonna figure it out. But I will say I was a little surprised she ate the food so readily, but what choice does she have?
She
I mean,
has that
I thought,
that realization when he's like, "I just needed you to eat the food," and she looks down, and then he's like, "Because if you eat it, then I know that you're real." I thought
yeah,
that was a
I
good
thought,
piece of direction, and like I like the way that
yeah,
that happened.
yeah. And in the meantime, on the other side of the silo, sorry, in the other silo, um, all sorts of things are happening.
Hey, but
Um,
before we go back there, can I just ask you real quickly, the scene where she's woken up by his music because he's had that thought about the firefighter suits, and she walks
yeah,
into IT, and she's walking across the bridge. There's another one of these camera angles that's shot from a level above her, looking over
Mhm.
the handrail, but like there's like, there's stuff in the foreground.
Yeah,
It's another one of these angles that sort of suggests that she's being watched, right?
yep.
But like that's about as far as they went with it, I want to say.
Yeah, it feels like there's somebody else in there, and he is scared, and obviously there's been other people who have tried to get in. So
I wonder. Yeah.
I do think there's somebody else in there, and I feel like I remember there is somebody else in there.
Yeah, we've talked about
Um,
this last time, but it was like kids. But who knows? At this
yeah,
point, who can say? Where I think we're definitely in unfamiliar territory with this, with the way that they're doing Silo 17, from
yeah.
how I remember it from reading it a million years ago. But in Silo 18, as you were saying, uh, where were you going to go to some of the Bernard Meadows stuff?
Yeah, I mean, basically Bernard now has like, he has a whole playbook that he's supposed to be putting in place so um that he can tamp down whatever rebellion's going to happen. Because if somebody goes out to clean, people want to also go out or think that they can live out there. And there's lots of stuff that's pointing to the fact that that might be correct. Because like there's like the graffiti that Juliet lives. There's been definitely like not like there's discontent in mechanical, and they are talking about it loudly, Shirley especially, and he is very like, this is what I have to do, and he wants Meadows to help him. And their relationship is incredibly weird. And
Yeah.
I don't know what to think. I mean, I have some thoughts, but like their relationship is incredibly weird. And she does call out the obvious a little later in this episode, but she's basically like, look, this isn't the time to go by the playbook because there's other things at hand. You have to think a little broader than that. Because he immediately like arrests somebody in mechanical for some of the graffiti, and he's kind of doing exactly what he's being told to do or what he has been trained to do. And she's just like, no, it's beyond that. And she's like gives him advice which he completely ignores.
Well,
So,
I don't know that he ignores it, but I think he has a Sims problem. And it's clear
right.
that Sims puts all of this other stuff into action, because we
Yeah.
get another scene with Patrick Kennedy, aka Luz from Band of Brothers, where he breaks him out of isolation, and he also recruits a retired raider, and then they both come into play, in this showdown between Shirley's group of rabble rousers who are trying to break Teddy out of jail, and Knox and Hank. You get the impression, I think, that Coop has told Knox this is coming, because otherwise, how could Knox have known that they were
Right.
going to be going after Teddy? It's it's tragic what happens here because Cooper is shot alongside Patrick Kennedy by Reggie, the retired Raider. I thought that this was nice, the way that they just had a couple of short scenes with Sims and people, and then you see what he's been doing. And Bernard does deny that later, but also Meadows is like, you clearly have been lying to me. I
Yeah.
agree that their relationship is super weird. Like he acts like he really needs her, but he isn't listening necessarily to her, or he doesn't have control over the situation to do anything about her advice. And it's not clear why he needs her as much as he seems to.
Well, and she says, you know, you don't actually need me because you're not listening to me. You just need a sounding board. So why did you actually need me? Well, I think we know now why he needs her because he's super creepy with her.
The
Um,
measuring, you think that was creepy
oh,
measuring?
the measuring. Oh, yeah, the measuring, their whole interaction in this whole scene is incredibly strange. And so I think he's got some kind of feeling for her, and there's probably something else that we don't know about. He is significantly older than her, obviously, because he's remembering back to when the other rebellion happened in the other silo.
Hmm.
Um, and he knows about the other silos, like he knows all about it. And so,
Like Solo
um,
does. They're like privy in that level of IT to this more
right.
information.
And so, but then when he goes and he's like measuring her and she's like, "Do you need to write down?" He's like, "No." And I'm like, "No, because you're not gonna actually make her the suit, or because you're super creepy and you already actually know her measurements because you're a weirdo." I don't know. But he is incredibly weird in this whole scene with her. And I did think that that was the editing here and the film, like the decisions that they made in terms of the angles and them showing these interactions
Hmm.
while they're talking
Yeah,
was really well done.
I liked it too.
And she's also creeped out by it, like as she grabs her coat after it, she's just like, ugh. You can sense that she probably wants to take a shower, um because she's there's something just weird about it. But he's already come up with a plan. I guess the question is, and this is, maybe something she's thinking about too, I'm not sure, but if he's lied to her about all this other stuff, and she specifically calls him out about Juliet because she says she now knows from the sheriff that Juliet didn't actually ask to go out, or there's a doubt about it, but she says, she never asked to go out. And he doesn't fully admit it, but he acknowledges it to some extent and then sort of moves on. But if he's lying about all this other stuff, if he can't even be honest with her about that, how is she going to actually get out of the silo? I mean, I think it feels like that's not going to go well for her. He's come up with an elaborate plan to get her out so that the cameras will
But
be off and she
none
can.
of this is helping him. Like if he lets her
Oh,
go, this is against
right,
what he seems to suggest
right,
that he needs. It's very unlikely that he's going to let her go.
right. And I
Yeah,
mean, but she's not dumb, so she's got to know
yeah.
that.
But
And I
she's
mean,
just
we've
saying
seen
things to him like, "You've already lied to me. Don't come back unless you've got my suit." But then she's trusting him to give her a good
right.
suit. Of course, she suspects that he doesn't want her to die because he has this weird thing for her. But that's not much, insurance. I don't know. I'm wondering also, like apropos of nothing, non sequitur here. Avi Nash, Lucas Kyle, the character of Lucas Kyle, who Rebecca Ferguson had some scenes with in the cafeteria in season one, he hasn't shown up yet.
I know. Is he ever going to show up again? I hope so.
Because he's a
Uh,
major character I feel like in this book, when unrest is happening in Silo 18. So I hope we get to see him again. Or they'll, if they couldn't get a hold of him again for a second season, maybe they're having to rewrite some of his stuff into Mary Meadows or who knows what.
yeah.
Just curious. So also on the death of Cooper, he was Juliet's shadow. Juliet was the one person who knew how to talk to the generator. Cooper was not even up to her level. But does this mean that nobody in mechanical knows how to talk to the generator anymore?
Yeah, I
This is
know.
a
I
question
don't
that
know.
I have. I mean, also Juliet was Knox's shadow, so maybe he also knows the generator inside and out, but I don't know that he does. uh very I mean, they also just had that whole episode devoted to fixing the generator, so maybe it's fine. It's gonna be fine.
Mm.
Anyway, that was another thought I had when he gets killed. And of course, you wonder, is this like this fight down in mechanical enough to defuse all of the anger and tension down there, or is it actually just going to make it worse? And then you have that nice scene with Shirley and Knox. And where do you feel like they're landing?
Hmm. With their
Is
plans?
Shirley more angry now, or is she going to be like more stirring up trouble, or do you think she's less?
Well, I feel like Knox has not talked reason, but he's basically like, look, I agree. I love Juliet too, and I think he thinks she might be alive as well. He's like, but you can't go on doing that. He can see that mechanical is going to be the brunt of whatever retaliation IT is going to because they have to. That's part like and that's also why Knox turned Juliet in was to protect the people in mechanical. And you can't always agree with that, but that's he's thinking about the bigger picture to some extent. And I do think that they're going to come up with a plan. Like they go and to the place where it's not monitored, and he was like, "Do you remember that wall of names when we were kids?" And they kind of go off to go and look at that because he says, "I know what that's about now."
Like it's
So.
everybody who died in the first uprising, we might think.
Maybe, or maybe it's people like signing their names to something there's something down there that is going to help them um
Hmm.
figure out a way out of this. But we'll have to find out. I did behave myself, so I did not
No,
watch the
same.
next.
I do
But
like Knox's approach. He just seems very practical, even
yeah,
though that practicality means that he basically did commit Juliet to death,
yep.
by giving her to the judicial in season one that Shirley's still so mad at him for. But he's also like, look, what were you gonna do? Free Teddy and then hide him for the rest of his life?
Right, right.
He seems to have a fairly solid grasp on the fact that they live in a town of 10,000 people. That's
Mm-hmm.
not even a town. It's just it's a bunker, and you can't get away with stuff like that. So he, I think, has this practicality that it's realistic, but it's also kind of annoying. And Shirley is certainly annoyed by him and does punch him.
He does. But I feel like they're allied now, and so I'm curious to see what they do. And I have faith in those two. I think they're gonna end up okay, hopefully. Um, and then I don't know the stuff, and then we'll see what's gonna happen with Meadows though, because she's watching videos of the beach and all this other stuff, and she's kind of in La La Land. So smart as she is, she definitely has some blinders on, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
For the her long-term plan. So,
They put that together. Those scenes of her watching home movies from hundreds of years ago, we can assume,
mhm.
overlaid with the violence happening in Mechanical, which so she's crying watching this movie that of people she's never possibly met, and at the same time that Knox and Shirley are crying over dying Cooper,
Yep.
and so yeah, I guess everybody's sad. Doesn't matter where you are. Uh, doesn't yeah
Well, I think the point is though is that she's, you know, even in her role, she's been kind of checked out. She's supposed to be helping people in the silo, or maybe she doesn't feel like she can because it's all like a game.
Yeah, you might think that. I
Um,
mean, maybe you could think that Shirley is dangerous because she is trying to foment rebellion, but Mary Meadows is more dangerous because she lives in the up top. She's a very influential person, and she's off her rocker, and she wants to
yep.
go outside really badly. And she says things to Paul Billings, the sheriff, like, "Oh, you know about the syndrome? We've known about it because it seemed like a silly thing, and humans aren't supposed to live underground, and nobody has
Hmm.
walked in 200 feet in a straight line except for Juliet Nichols and I." She doesn't say to him, "I want to go outside," but I think he can read between the lines that she's saying a lot of heresy. And Paul Billings,
Yeah.
I feel like, is 100% going to die before this show ends. That's
Yeah, probably.
We also have some scenes of Juliet's dad, Jorah Mormont, where he meets a woman who is up for birth. lottery because of Juliet walking out. They've been doing all these things to like, make the people happy, like giving them 5 credits and apparently reopening the birth. Also, there have been so many murders. They might as well have a birth lottery, right?
Yep.
Plenty of people have been dying. So he meets this woman, talks about how much parenthood meant to him, and then we have a couple more scenes with him. One of them is him reading his emails, and it says, "Whatever you do, don't take out Phoebe Wells's birth control," which is this woman, who is this woman he met. And then he has his little moment of rebellion in the operating room where he does not replace the birth control for this one lady. Um, and we'll see what happens there. I mean, it seems like a pretty small act. I don't know what might come of it.
Well, I guess my question is, are there cameras that saw him do it,
Yeah,
or is there a way that they know? I mean, obviously, if she gets pregnant, they'll know that he did something, right?
yeah,
So we'll see. But this is his act of rebellion. He's definitely uh very saddened by Juliet's departure. And there's some pretty good scenes with him here, just even with him and this woman when they're talking about it, because she doesn't realize it's him at first. And when she realizes that Juliet um, is his daughter, she's just very upset because she's like, oh, that's why we're getting this chance is basically because Juliet left the silo. Um, so, but he's talking about Juliet and just talking about children and future and hope. And I thought that that was like a really nice scene between the two of them, which definitely informs the decision he makes to take her actual birth control out when he does the operation.
yeah. It's probably got something to do with it. And then also in Silo 17, Juliet has a plan to try and get firefighter stuff. And it just so happens that it's underwater. It's kind of wild that everything like level 23 is fully underwater. That's pretty high up in the silo. I mean, I know it's going underground, so that makes sense that the water table wouldn't necessarily be so deep. But that's most of this, like the silo is what, 120 plus floors, and level
Yep.
23 is already fully underwater. So she has to come up with some sort of way to get this suit making material, and that requires her swimming, which she's ne we've had a few scenes of her being terrified of water and not really knowing how to swim, but she wants to come up with some scuba stuff, and then she wants Solo to run an air pump, which would require him to come out of the vault, which he's unwilling to do, and that's another one of these lines that Steve Zahn just delivers so well, like I can't from inside the door.
Yep. He's very and you believe that he's totally terrified. You totally believe that he is just not going to be able to make it out of there, that he's been alone for so long. And then she sees the message that was written and I think she understands a little bit more about what's informing him. Although, I mean, I have to say, yes, he's her only option, but I don't know that I would he's a bit of a loose cannon and definitely not somebody that you could know that you would trust. Like he's obviously off his rocker.
Yeah.
So,
But she's
I
got a
don't
problem that she needs help to solve, and
right.
there's
I don't
nobody
know.
else there, right?
I know, but like I don't know. I'm gonna bet on Juliet alone versus Juliet with Solo to solve whatever problems. But he does make it out. He does make it out. And I will say the scene between Juliet and Solo is really great.
It's funny.
Rebecca Ferguson and Steve Zahn are this is a great scene where he's just like, "What? Don't I look like you thought I'd look or
Do
something
I
weird
look
like that?"
bad?
Yeah, it's really funny.
And then he's having like this horrible agoraphobia attack, which I'm really glad
Yeah.
that they did because he has been in
Yes.
like this tiny room, and then he gets onto the bridge and almost goes over, like, and then when
Yep.
she tries to stop him, he freaks out even more because nobody's touched him in 25 years, we imagine.
Right.
Oh
Right.
God, just and then she's like, "All right, we'll just sit down." So
Yep.
I can't wait to see more scenes between these two. Hopefully, there'll be a
I
few.
also felt with this scene that somebody might be watching them. So that was also a feeling too.
Yeah.
So we'll see if that comes to
It,
pass.
if it doesn't, that's some real tricksy camera work from the production.
Yep,
So well played.
yep.
But yeah, like the thing is, none of these perspectives of them being watched from a distance have been moving. And often when they like want to really hammer it in that there's definitely somebody there, they'll have
They
the
move it
perspective
as
move
if it's a
behind cover,
perspective.
right? But it's always been totally static, but just from sort of behind cover. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see where it goes. And for people who have watched more of the show than we have at this point, you're probably like, yeah, dummies. And that's because we are being good and not watching ahead.
Yeah.
And
Um,
that's kind of the end of the episode. I am excited to see where it goes from here. Whether in Silo 18 or 17, I feel like they're keeping things kind of chugging along. Like I said, it was a little bit like not a whole lot happened, but Cooper getting killed, Patrick Kennedy being killed, Sims taking more action sort of independently, but apparently according to the pact or the order, um, does feel like maybe he's going to be accelerating the problems because he's not doing it with this nuanced approach that Meadows would have recommended. And what she's recommending is apparently the order suggests that they create a class war between mechanical and the rest of the silo in a way, like,
but that also seems like really ill-advised because Mechanical is in charge of all the power in the silo.
yeah.
So it doesn't seem to make sense.
Yeah, find a cast that doesn't have such a critical job, like I don't know, teachers.
I,
What can they possibly be teaching people in the silo anyway? They don't even have books.
yeah. One thing did occur to me though, just before we are like wrapping up, but like the Meadows and Bernard dynamic, is there some idea that maybe he raised his feelings with her or
And that's
um
why she quit.
or maybe she just became too obsessed with this outside
Well,
world
he
and
did
that's
ask her, what's your secret? Why did you quit all those years ago? Like he has
that's
no
true.
idea what she's
Oh,
holding on to.
yeah. So maybe this is it. But maybe she saw whatever's happening, like his weirdness with her. I don't know. We will have to find out. So that's just one more
Yeah.
observation that maybe that just kind of put
There's a
her.
lot of interesting mysteries for the story to still unfold, and that's what's kind of cool about this show is that they're not just laying it all out there. It's hard to predict what's going to happen next, even though we've read the books.
I know, I know. Isn't that terrible? I do remember how it ends,
Yeah.
so just don't remember all the steps
Yeah.
between here and getting there. So anyway, but I'm excited to watch the rest of this show with you. It's honestly holding up. Like the episodes have been very strong in my
Yeah.
opinion. So
Helped
so
by this
really
incredible cast and, these choices that they're making with how they're telling the story. So yeah.
I have to say, I do also like the flipping between the two silos. I do like that last week's episode was a lot about what was going on in the aftermath of Juliet's disappearance. So I'm really excited to watch the rest of the show with you, and I'm glad that I am continuing to hold on to my willpower to not zoom ahead, even though it's so tempting
Do
to.
your best.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, we will catch up more with episode 4 of Silo the next time we get together. And that's going to be called, what's that going to be called? Harmonium.
Harmonium.
Same, no, different. It's same director, different writer. So we'll see. And when we get back together, we invite you to come and join us and send us an email if you want to talk to us about this show, any other thing. Happy to hear from you always. That's reanimatedpodcast@gmail.com. And you can find all of our episodes online at reanimated.podbean.com. You can also find us on different platforms such as Spotify or YouTube. Just look up Reanimated Podcast and we'll show up. It's amazing. Miracles. And that's about all I got to say about that. So, toodaloo.
Ciao.